It's one of the first international flights I've taken in quite a while. Emirates Business Class from Sydney to Dubai, escaping wet, cold, miserable Sydney and the very last day of the month-long summer lockdown, and also the last week of the 2-year-long travel restrictions, which have forbidden Australians, and come to that, citizens of other countries, from travelling overseas without full government permission. Before even getting to check-in, I was subjected to a rigorous document examination to ensure I was even permitted into the check-in hall, and another, you see it here, to double-check documents before you get to approach the desk. And that permission isn't easy to get. Never mind how urgent that business or funeral you have to get to, mostly the Australian government said no and introduced tighter and tighter rules, to the stage at the end of the restrictions, nearly 2 years later, where only a few hundred people a week were permitted to leave these shores. Hence, most airlines stopped flying. Look at Sydney Airport. It's absolutely deserted. Although, of course, these rules have now loosened up. At the time, after months of effort, I managed to obtain that rarest of things, an exit permit to be permitted to see what lay beyond the shores of Down Under. It's a very rare treat to be allowed to travel at the moment, and even more so for the government to allow you out of your own country. So I was determined to do so in style and book Emirates. Most airlines such as Qantas have just given up flying internationally out of Australia. However, Emirates is one of the few to carry on flying, along with Qatar and Singapore Airlines. Check out the queue here, where each person had to present that crucial DFAT travel permit to be permitted into check-in. No exceptions if your paperwork wasn't right up to date and absolutely perfect. Business class redemptions halfway around the world are normally booked out a year in advance, but COVID resulted in pretty much every seat being wide open, at a few days' notice even. 159,000 Qantas miles later, I had a seat on Emirates. In fact, there were loads of seats available, with only about 30 passengers on this aircraft tonight. And there behind the sign, security checks, which took at least 2 minutes, the fastest I've ever been through. With just one immigration officer on duty, they seemed happy to have a customer, with the Australian government forbidding all but a favoured few from getting an exit permit for international travel out of the country. Alas, with no passengers, the airport was the expected ghost town. Duty-free closed in March 2020, and much of the airport with it. After check-in, another disappointing moment. I was offered a $30 voucher, but warned there would only be a tiny sandwich shop to spend it in. I asked about lounge access, to be told that Emirates are not offering lounges in Sydney at the moment, even to elite frequent flyers in business class. And sure enough, the Emirates lounge was shut, but also, so were all the pay-in lounges and indeed pretty much everything else. The airport was absolutely empty, with only a few rather bemused passengers wandering around. But joy, that little sandwich shop was open, and even better, hidden in the fridge, they served a healthy serving of Corona in bottles. Alas, it was impossible to use my $30 to pay for it. Furthermore, every seat had been removed, and security were insistent that no one could sit anywhere. They said it was for health reasons. After a hearty dinner of just one small sandwich under the closed golden arches, I wandered around the eerie experience of a very, very deserted, very empty airport. Not only was the Emirates lounge closed, but both the Qantas lounges, and indeed every other airline lounge, was firmly shut. The terminal has 8 airline lounges, 2 for Qantas, 1 each for Etihad, Air New Zealand, Singapore Airlines, Emirates, American Express and SkyTeam. Reviews of all these lounges are on Lounge Index, but they've been closed for the better part of 2 years. I took a long walk down the Long Pier. The international terminal used to be in 2 halves and you couldn't walk between them, so now you can with an airside corridor. Pier B is used by Qantas and Emirates, but right now I'm off to Pier C, which has got better seats and is mainly used by Star Alliance Airlines. Rather than closing most of the terminal and keeping passengers and indeed the lights on in just one small area in the terminal, as many airports around the world did, Sydney Airport kept all the lights on and everything running for the 100 or so passengers a day who pass through. Now as we pass it, that's the House Lounge, originally run by Etihad, on the left. The transit passenger area, not that there are any, is on the right, with half a dozen guards, but not a single passenger. I was on the hunt for an elusive seat, as well as, it seems, elusive passengers, and I heard a rumour that a small newsagent might briefly open up in Pier C. Now, normally the airport handles around 50 million passengers a year. Right now, that's hard to believe. This part of the terminal, however, had fixed seats, so it's possible to sit down. Finally, after a very long wait in a very empty terminal, it was time to board my aircraft. Now, with so few passengers, virtually everybody had priority boarding. And there we go, down the air bridge onto the Emirates Boeing 777-300ER with 3 classes. It's large, roomy, and, well, a bit disappointing in business class. Now, Emirates Boeing 777 comes equipped with private suites in first class with 8 traditional first class seats in a 1-2-1 layout and a non-alcoholic minibar. Then business class, which has a forward and an aft cabin. This was sorely disappointing. Sadly, Emirates have decided what was good enough 30 years ago is good enough now. Business class comes with a row of 7 seats in a row, all angled recliners. Sure, it stretches out a bit, but for an 18-hour flight, there are vastly better seats. By contrast, economy, here pretty empty, has a 3-4-3 layout. Now, most airlines originally aimed for only 9 seats in a row in economy, but Emirates put in 1 extra row, meaning economy is just a little bit squishier on Emirates. However, other airlines are now following Emirates by reducing their seat size and going from 9 abreast to 10. It still doesn't matter, however, considering how empty it is tonight. In business, the layout is a classic 2-3-2 layout as a throwback to the 1990s with a middle seat in Emirates' luxury cabin, which means travelling through business class, you as a passenger need to step over the person beside you. It's the same for all the window seats. Most airlines abandoned this 20 years ago, but Emirates maintain this design on their 777s. Noise-reducing headphones are available at the seat, although everything was wrapped in as much plastic as possible. At least pre-flight champagne is available. A full amenity kit was provided, and for once, it was better than usual and well stocked. Other than the usual toothbrush and paste, the kit contained aftershave, shaving foam, a razor, moisturizer, lip balm, a hairbrush, Rexona, and tissues. You'll find a tablet, which Emirates called a mode controller, by the seat. You can use this to adjust the seat, browse through the in-flight entertainment catalogue and set movies to play, or even use it as a second screen, such as displaying an external camera or the moving map, or watching something else on the big screen.
And due to the length of flight, we have 12 pilots, the captain Paul Keenan from the UK and the senior first officer Scott Warrington from Australia.
Unfortunately, this aircraft is one of the oldest in Emirates' fleet, where the TV screen is high up on the wall.
Arabian Sea and Oman, starting us head down towards Dubai. For the conditions during the flight are assessed to be reasonably good, so we're keeping seatbelt possible, due to unexpected turbulence and always a possibility.
You can also use your phone to make calls in the air, although it must be said at phenomenal cost. Podcasts are available on the in-flight entertainment system. However, I've got to say the entertainment system was fairly meagre, with a selection including some mainstream Hollywood films that really didn't do that well. The TV selection was worse, and unless you're into endless box sets of reality TV, maybe it's better to bring a laptop and pre-download what you actually want to watch. The tablet can be unlocked and released from its dock to display content and control your seat and the IFE wirelessly. That's handy if you're adjusting your seat while standing up. Indeed, there were the joys of no less than 3 TV controllers with this small standard remote, which also had a small mini screen. It proved to be the most useful. Adding to the woes of the IFE was a Wi-Fi. Now, Emirates make the most of their free onboard Wi-Fi, and it's advertised that any membership of their frequent flyer system, even those without status, can enjoy free messenger services in business class. As a gold, I hope this would work automatically. Alas, for some reason, the entire plane was out for Skywards members. However, I can report that the charge service at $20 for the flight works very, very slowly. Now hear those General Electric high bypass turbofan G90s going to takeoff thrust. And we're up into the clouds. Time to check out the menu. There was a very comprehensive cocktail list. It's good to see those back on the menus after all the trauma of the past couple of years, and indeed after the months of lockdown in New South Wales. For dinner, starter options included mushroom soup, Arabic meze or tuna. Mains had beef tenderloin, chicken or fried rice with prawns. Dessert with a chocolate and caramel tart, along with fruit and cheese boards. Snacks were available throughout the flight, and a cheese omelette for breakfast in 12 hours. I delved into the cocktail list and tried the mojito. It's rare to get one of these on a plane, with fresh lime, rum and a dash of sugar. There was a separate wine list. Champagne was a Moet. Whites were Cloudy Bay Sauvignon Blanc and Hall Dutton Chardonnay. Reds included a Chateau Lafron from 2011. For starters, I went for the traditional Arabic meze plate with hummus, stuffed vine leaves and Kalamata olives. There is live TV, but the TV screen was not only small but very firmly fixed to the bulkhead. High up, distant, almost wish for a pair of opera glasses to view it. The meze plate wasn't quite what I was expecting, and indeed the presentation is in a kind of giant bento box, and indeed it was so far below Qatar and Etihad's stylish offerings as to be rather off-putting. At least I could recline my seat and enjoy a Kirat Royale. It's a classic French aperitif of champagne with a splash of crème de cassis. That was followed by the Cloudy Bay Sauvignon Blanc. It's quite an elegant wine with a concentrated palate revealing stone fruit and lemongrass, supported by a lovely crisp acidity. Main course, and I went for the seared beef tenderloin, served with shallots and tarragon sauce, steamed asparagus and potato gratin with celeriac. The beef tenderloin was actually really rather good indeed, with all the flavour that had been missing in the starter. I love the gratin with celeriac, a rare vegetable to get on a plane, and there was a small side salad too. And I took a glass of the Chateau Lafron 2011, which was dark ruby and had a great nose of dark fruit and blackberry, with a surprisingly high acidity. Now we're high over the Gibson Desert, trying to watch the TV, but it was quite hard to see as I had to be perched on the edge of my seat to try and watch it. As for the dessert, a chocolate and caramel tart sufficed. I tried the Calazzi 2015 from Tuscany, a dark and impenetrable red wine that sits very heavily in the glass, and it goes very nicely with the Arabic chocolates. Then onto the cheese board, with Australian cheddar, French blue and brie. Graham Sport from 1995, which has a dark, oaky notes, including caramel, toffee and chocolate. At least when it's not being tossed around the cabin by the quite violent turbulence. Not on the wine list, but the crew found a Muffato sweet dessert wine as well. Carried on watching the television, and it was quite amusing seeing others in the cabin perched on the edge of their seats trying to watch the screens. It certainly wasn't the premium experience I was expecting. Finally, an old-fashioned cocktail. Needed to sleep, and indeed I got about 6 hours kip, but it really wasn't the most comfortable of sleeps in a thin, narrow Emirates recliner with a pronounced slope. It left me wishing for the A380 with its glorious flatbed to come back onto the route. Desley came around and a good 4 hours to go for breakfast, such is the length of the flight. The crew made me a nice cup of tea and we were well past India. Now it was 9:30 in the morning in Australia or 2 in the morning in Dubai. There was a full cooked breakfast with no less than 2 chicken sausages, an omelette with mushrooms, a bowl of fruit and pastries including a croissant and a pain à raisin. The cooked breakfast was pretty standard, and to be honest I was pretty full too, and also staring down the barrel of another breakfast in the lounge and a third one on the next flight to London. So here we go, 3 hours to go before landing. And look at that empty cabin. Berry yogurt as we wiggle our way over the Gulf. Now, business class, of course, is always much more comfortable and vastly better than the seats down the back. But the older seats have got no stowage, so you feel very hemmed in by how narrow it is, and it's almost impossible to reach a laptop or a book from your seat, so you have to get out of the tight squeeze and pray you don't spill your drink. At least there are lights for attracting attention when you browse the cocktail list. We're heading into Dubai now and very nearly on finals. Now, I really want to like Emirates, I really do, and despite all their recent cost cutting, and trust me, there's been quite a lot of it, it's still a good airline. But when Emirates first started flying, they went for a seat design that was already on its way out with 7 seats across in a row. Of course, when the A380 came along, almost 15 years ago now, vastly better seats were installed with every seat with aisle access. Emirates is almost alone in this regard of sticking to the old style recliners on its 777s, which is why it staggers me in the latest refresh of Emirates Boeings, the same nearly 30-year-old seat design was selected. Well, we're heading now for a gentle touchdown in Dubai in the very, very early hours of the morning. Dawn hasn't even attempted to make an attempt at dawning. And look how quiet it is. It used to be such a busy airport, and I hope it's going to be again, eventually. Every gate, however, occupied by all the A380s over there. Now, as we pull up to the gate, there's another 777 next to us. Again, that one's got the old style recliners. And just look at it. When it comes to sleeping, the slope's quite harsh because the seats don't feature a real footrest, so you need to rest a foot on a small ledge to keep you from slipping down the slightly angled flip-out bit. And there we are, our Boeing 777-300 series ER for extended range with an increased fuel capacity, having a maximum range of 7,300 nautical miles. We used up quite a lot of that trying to get here from Australia to Dubai. Went straight up to the business class lounge. It's still very quiet, but after lockdown in Sydney, it was wonderful to see people again. Emirates got me on time into Dubai, and to be honest, I was relieved to have made it out of lockdown and out of Australia, and once again on a long-haul flight.